Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm the producer, Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
It is a holiday tradition here at Theater Talk for us to assemble some of our favorite critics. This year has been particularly...
What a gallery!
But this year has been particularly ghastly for more reasons than the shows we have seen.
I don't know why these gentlemen are laughing, because their jobs are disappearing as we speak. We're going to talk about the problems facing drama criticism in the country, the problems facing newspapers, and I think we'll eventually get to some of the shows that have been on the boards this season with Mike Kuchwara from the Associated Press. Mike, welcome back to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
Jacques Lesourd, formerly of Gannett Newspapers, now of CBS Radio, with that face always, I thought, for radio, Jacques.
Well, aren't you a darling?
And our friend John Heilpern from the New York Observer. Gentlemen, welcome to Theater Talk. All right, Jacques, you spent 35 years as the drama critic for Gannett Newspapers, and you were laid off just this past year, along with, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 other reporters from Gannett. The Star-Ledger has gotten rid of its drama critic. The Sun newspaper in New York has closed down. We know that many other drama critics across the country, indeed, are worried about their jobs. Is your profession doomed?
Doomed, I would say. It's not getting a buyout from the federal government. That's clearly not one of the most missed professions. But I think, yes, I think it's sort of, certainly the drama critics circle is shrinking fast. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think it's sort of a luxury. I mean, Gannett were very complimentary when I left. They said they love me and I'm terrific and they can't replace me and they'd never replace me and I'm irreplaceable, but they can't afford me. That's the bottom line. Mm-hmm. So I think it's sort of like the arts in the schools, and you know, it's one of those things that you can chop when you're looking for places to chop, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Are critics necessary, John? I mean, you would think if I were a producer and I'd see you critics are falling by the wayside, say, I've hated critics my whole career. You beat up on my shows. I can go now on the internet. There are chat rooms full of dime store critics all the time, yakking away on stuff. I can bypass critics by going to direct mail to my audiences to get people in. Are you no longer the gatekeepers?
We are the gatekeepers, really. First of all, what happened to you is a disgrace. It's disgraceful that they don't support the theatre when you live in New York, which is a $1 billion industry. New York is the theatre. Yeah. So not to want a critic of distinction to comment on what people should see and why. People forget that critics support playwrights. They support shows as well as critique them. Mm-hmm. So yes, they're very, very necessary. Of course they are.
And I've always said that my audience pays retail for its tickets.
You were the Westchester suburban audience that has been an important chunk of the theater audience forever.
They're the kind of people who planned ahead when they came to the city. They bought their tickets. They didn't line up at the half-price booth. They bought retail. And, you know, I think that I spoke to them in a particular way. But, you know, I think also critics, there's a shrinking of critics who are generalist news people. That's disappearing now. Everybody's on a little
theater geek.
Yeah, and I think the critics tend to be that, with the possible exception of Mike Kuchwara, whose empire grows.
Well, I was going to say, now sitting to your right is a drama critic who everyone, Mike, on Broadway tells me your power is increasing day by day because working for the Associated Press, when these papers lay off their drama critics, they're going to be using Mike Kuchwara reviews. Your empire is going to stretch across the land.
Well, the mainstream critic has totally disappeared. I mean, the days of Time Magazine, Newsweek, all having critics, where a playwright could appear on Broadway and the next week you'd be on the cover of Time. Last year, if Time magazine was smart, they would have put Tracy Letts on the cover of Time.
They're in enough trouble circulation as it is.
That's true. That's true. But those days are gone, and now we have a niche audience. You go to the chat rooms, you go to the blogs, and this is a very specialized crowd that gets into minutia about the theater that most people don't care about.
The thing I always thought, though, John, about critics, I mean, I enjoyed reading when I was growing up, people like Frank Rich or Clive Barnes. Even if you weren't seeing the show, you enjoyed the writing. I mean, it seems to me the most important criterion for the job of a critic is to be an engaging and enjoyable writer. Do you think value is not placed on writing in newspapers anymore?
Well, my newspaper places incredible value on my writing, naturally, and lots of people who read me do. So you can only hope that you appeal to a section of the reading public who want to be entertained by you and want to be informed by you and want to be fired up by you. The critic is the man who shouts the news to the street. See the show. By and large, he has a bias in favor. Not a bias against. And I think if you talk to some guys in the industry, they would be sorry about what's happening. They're very sorry. They're not thrilled and dancing in the aisles. They want different opinions to inform the public, because there's a million different kinds of shows on. So my taste may not be Jacques' taste, it may not be his taste.
But the whole point is to have a debate, an engaging debate about a show, and that show then becomes an event that intelligent people are discussing and talking about.
That's exactly right.
But you write, John, for an elitist newspaper, a newspaper for intelligent people. But Jacques wrote for a more like a regional newspaper or of a national chain, where they're more interested in replacing you with blurbs on shopping. For the large public who really don't read discerningly, they read paragraphs and look at the pictures.
Well,
and
but
that's
you're
the way it
just
is.
leaving out the audience that does read about the theater.
I know, but alas, they are shrinking.
Well, like
But also, reading habits have changed.
Yes.
No,
Reading
true.
habits
Explain.
have changed. People read news now on their BlackBerry, on their
And is it
Trio.
not true at the
Shorter
EP
and
that
shorter.
you're how long are your reviews now?
We're writing about 500 words.
And when you began writing, you could write how many words?
750.
750, 800 if you wanted. But,
Right.
you know, people, there's so much competition for attention. The whole news business has changed. Remember when newspapers used to have various editions?
Yes.
They used to wait up for the final of the Times or the Post or the Mirror to get the review.
I
Now
think
You
so.
have to
go
think
right
when you
online.
read your reviews, John Heilpern. You really have
You
to
have to
think.
think?
Yes.
I wouldn't go that
And
far.
I mean, people on their Blackberries, are they thinking, or they're multitasking and just getting little tips?
Well, I don't, frankly, see everyone reading theatre reviews on their Blackberries. I don't see everybody walking around going, my goodness me.
I better rush to
No,
the
but
box
they're
office and
reading-
buy
You
tickets.
know, I don't see that happening.
But that's what the advertisers want to sell.
Yes,
Millions and millions of people go to the theatre. The idea that theatre is dying is ridiculous. It's one of the most successful industries in America, Broadway. It's $1 billion industry, right? You can't go off Broadway and walk in. I find the off-Broadway, you never go, Jacques, to off-Broadway. but for those of us who do go to off-Broadway, they're full.
Well, I
But
think
John, when
like
you look
to
at
go.
the grosses, when you look at the grosses of Broadway, the things that are doing well are the tourist shows, Jersey Boys, Wicked, the Disney shows, things that were
For whom
kind of
critics are immaterial.
critic-proof.
Well, they're not entirely immaterial, but they are the obvious cases because it's a tourist magnet, of course, and a bordello when it comes to taste. So why are we fooling
high-priced
around?
bordello.
It's what it is, and it's now facing a potential crisis, and the fact that the tourists won't be around for the next foreseeable
That's
future,
right.
for the next year or two.
But I think
so they have to reorganize their industry too.
Right.
They can't sit back and charge everyone $125 to go see a family musical. It's ridiculous. It always was ridiculous, but if the marketplace can take it, fine.
Well, the
good luck
marketplace
to
has
them.
been taking it for a long time, but it is about to change. I agree with you.
So just to say, I think critics, the people do go. You name 3 or 4 obvious shows, and you're right. But there are many, many other shows. You know, if a blogger is going to sound off about the Chekhov play, which is a marvelous production and it's a success.
The Seagull on Broadway.
The Seagull. If they're going to sound off on that, great. maybe they want some expert opinion, really.
And I think all three of us write not just in terms of, do you want to go see this? We write to keep people informed. This sounds like a quaint notion, but to keep people informed of the theater scene. And they might read a Seagull review to be up on what the latest Seagull is like without any really intending to go see it. And it's an informing kind of function.
But yeah, Mike, here's the problem that I see for the theater as critics become less important and as indeed they disappear. It's one thing, if you have a big advertising budget, you can advertise at Jersey Boys. But without a lively critical fraternity, if you will, is it possible to draw attention to a playwright who will become, let us say, the next David Mamet, the next Edward Albee? Isn't one of your functions as a critic to find that out-of-the-way play and tell the world this is the arrival of something new and exciting?
That's true. I mean, we can all champion, the great undiscovered playwright, but producers have to be savvy in terms of, putting these plays on. If you look at, it's been a change in producing of plays on Broadway this season. Short, limited runs, 15, 20 weeks. You get a star, you get a Jane Fonda, you get a Jeremy Irons, you get a Joan Allen, and can these plays be commercially successful? I think so. Look at All My Sons, a perfect example. 15, 20 weeks. They've got John Lithgow, for the older audience, Dan Wiest. They've got Katie Holmes, who'll, get a younger
They got
crowd.
Very mediocre reviews, but it doesn't seem to matter.
It did not
because
matter.
of the stars,
Yes, so it's a different world in terms of putting, serious drama on
What
Broadway.
do editors, John, if you make the case that the theater is important, it's important to culture, and therefore critics are important to the theater, what do editors say to you guys? They don't want long reviews anymore. They don't want you to review that obscure thing. They only want you to review Shrek. What is their thinking? Where is that coming from?
It's celebrity. That's the new buzzword.
Jeremy Piven in Speed the Plow.
Speed the Plow. And, when you get a Katie Holmes, you get a Daniel Radcliffe. I mean, this is what people want to read. And and sometimes it doesn't work. Look at American Buffalo. It was cast with supposedly with stars.
John Leguizamo, Cedric the Entertainer.
And
Katie Holmes can't act.
Yes.
She's the one who sold that show.
Yes.
So do you
Not even she's married to a star.
But I don't do celebrities.
No, I know you don't. But do you see us getting to the point where newspapers, media outlets are going to say, you know what, we don't really need the review to cover Daniel Radcliffe opening Equus. We'll send the reporter to get quotes from him on the red carpet, and that'll be our coverage of the opening night.
Yes. Yeah.
That
that's
you think
the
is happening?
concern.
Yes.
Well,
it is.
You'll be
yes and no. Why would they do that? The fact of the matter is there are still enlightened newspaper owners. There are still enlightened editors. And they take a major entertainment industry and a cultural industry at that extremely seriously. Why would they let down their readers? Newspapers still have, or used to, Jacques,
have readers?
Well,
a bond with their readers.
You have a very
bond.
altruistic view, John.
My editor sees the need for theater reviews, but it's just a matter of a menu, and it's a luxury beat. It's some, or as they call it, a legacy beat.
I don't think they call it the legacy beat.
I don't think it's a luxury beat at all. I think going to the theatres is an expensive thing for people to do. Yes. Very expensive, even if we were lucky enough that they did the right thing and brought the prices down, so it would still be expensive. It's not a movie. So they need critics, they need real guidance on what a show is about, what they might want to see, what they should see. They need it, and they want it, because they're doling out $200 for two.
Well, and in my case...
Not a luxury.
I would guess they would think, well,
Yes.
there is still a luxury layer of audience that cares about the theater. They'll read the New York Times, and they don't care. So they're not that big a loss to my sort of newspaper. They'll just read a different
Or,
newspaper.
in the case may be, the Associated Press.
Well, we forget. I mean, there's a whole economic meltdown happening. It's not just the theater. Everything else is collapsing around
true.
it, too.
Really? I didn't know. We never looked beyond Broadway.
So it's everything. Newspapers are folding like crazy. Yesterday, the Rocky Mountain News in Denver was put up for sale. People are being slashed on papers all across the country.
And no bailout.
And it's not just theater. It's the sports department.
Yes.
It's
Across the board cuts.
Across the boards. The business department. So it's not just theater. Movie critics are going too.
Yeah.
So it's more of a worldwide phenomenon than that's not just Broadway.
Michael, do you think they'll cut theater prices, ticket prices? Do you think the
Do
producers? You talk to producers.
Yeah, they already are aggressively discounting, very aggressively discounting.
Okay.
But you know what you'll see change is that once upon a time discounts were something on Broadway that you wanted to kind of keep hidden because you wanted people to think you were a sold-out show, so you discounted quietly. Now, I was talking to someone involved in ticketing last night who said we're going to have to not be embarrassed that we've got lots of empty seats that we need to sell. So you saw, for example, a big announcement from Disney from January to March. You can bring kids under 15,
under 18,
under 18 for free. I mean,
if you buy a full price ticket.
If you buy one full price ticket, you can take the family. I mean, if that's not aggressive discounting, I don't know what is. So let's touch on a few things. You already mentioned you took a whack at poor old Katie Holmes and All My Sons.
Yes.
This revival of the Arthur Miller's first success, I think. Aside from Katie Holmes, does it have anything to recommend it?
No.
Oh, I disagree. I think it's quite atmospheric, and I've seen the play before. I like the play, but I think Simon McBurney has done a remarkable job of directing, and I think it's. You don't agree?
Well, no, I wouldn't dream of.
Well,
Supposed to be doing
even the
that.
underscoring. I mean, people say
Oh,
the
the
underscoring. Oh, there's too much underscoring.
It's like, it's a film on stage.
Yes, well,
People remember what live theatre was like. Why does Arthur Miller need a
Right.
score? Why, when they mention the name plane, do we need a video of a plane? Why? You know what an aeroplane looks like. Don't you? Why do we need this? Why do we need this?
Why do we need Katie Holmes?
I say, of course, you know, I was unkind about Katie Holmes, but the fact of the matter is, she's never acted on stage before, and she probably won't again. Really, so that's very nice.
So rush out to see her.
What's the fuss? There are marvelous.
There's Diane Wiest, who's superb.
But Diane Wiest, of course, but she's dwarfed by an enormous video screen.
And so then they all just shout at each other.
Why are they shouting? They're shouting.
Like you.
Why?
It's all
Like
about
me.
the director.
Simon McBurney was among the leading avant-garde directors in Europe, as we all know. So, and I love his work.
Yeah.
But here's an exception. He's done in Arthur Miller's play. The fact that it's a success is due to many things, principally Katie Holmes, I believe. It's not an artistic success, and I imagine Arthur Miller would be spinning in his grave. But perhaps his heirs aren't.
No, they're collecting the royalties.
Yes,
You're not. We're not. You're
no,
not for
I
this
wasn't a
production.
fan of it either, but it was cleverly, marketed. I have to give the producer
But the
credit.
audience at the end is transported, and that's what
They are.
counts.
It's very showy. I mean, it's like the helicopter in Miss Saigon or the chandelier in Phantom. I mean, it's that
But
kind
when
of
you're
distraction.
when you're charging people $110 for a play, you have to give them stuff.
Give them the airplane.
$116.50.
Well, then you've got to get Katie Holmes.
Arthur Miller has never failed to touch an audience. He's not the most sophisticated playwright, but he writes from the gut and the heart.
Yeah. He's
And
not a
everyone
poet.
around me was as cold as fish. There was no sense of an emotional connection because you've got this movie going on, and it's a bad movie, right?
Yes, I totally agree.
You lose, Jacques.
Well, I guess he's with my editor. I mean,
No. We
now
want to
spot the
read your
seagull.
support.
Well, but
That's the
first,
whole
though,
point.
there is a young
other
performer on
shows.
Broadway who I think is really, really terrific. A star as well, Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter in Equus. Jacques, do you think the kid acquitted himself well in this?
I think the kid acquitted himself fine, but the one is Professor Dysart. He's marvelous, and I think the play is not, I think it's a little dated and a little bogus, but it carries you along. Did you find that cinematic? Too cinematic? Equus?
No, I found it genuinely theatrical,
Yeah.
really, because it didn't have video
lots of-
in it.
yeah.
It had the real thing, actors pretending to be horses.
Yeah.
If it was another director, they'd show a video of a horse.
It was also very similar to the original production too. They didn't change it
The
very
same
much.
designer,
Yeah, same
okay.
set designer, same production team. So it sort of harkened back to that. original production, which was an enormous success. It was one of the plays
Ran
that
4 or 5
Jerry
years.
Schoenfeld brought that saved Broadway in the 70s.
It did save Broadway.
That's right.
But also, it's a play that appealed to a mainstream audience. I mean, you know, you could understand it. It was a great story.
It is the kind of play, though, I think, though, that's kind of, it's geared towards a middle-brow audience that
Yes.
likes to think itself intellectual. So its intellectual ideas go down
That's why
very
we like it,
easily.
Jack.
Yes.
That's why
Yes.
But now, speaking...
But Daniel Radcliffe, that's his stage debut.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, he can act.
He's
Absolutely.
lovely.
There's
Yeah.
a difference, and he wants to be on stage,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see him on stage in the
Yes,
future.
yes.
So it's not just a one-off celeb
No.
thing at all.
No.
Speaking of the real thing actors, I want to talk about The Seagull, which is closing at the end of the year. But what did you think of that production?
Me? I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was one of the best Chekhovs I've seen, really. It
And the
was
star
just-
is? Who's the woman?
Kristen Scott Thomas, who I thought was super as well, actually. It's very hard for an actress to play an actress, isn't it, really? They're usually over the top, completely over the top. In fact, she was rather threatening and intelligent, much more nuanced than usual. But the ensemble as a whole really worked marvelously.
You have to give credit to the director, too, Ian Rickson,
Ian
who
Rickson, right.
did an amazing job.
It was one of the most lucid productions of Chekhov I've ever seen. Your mind never, it was as clear as a bell, lucid, not simplistic, but remarkably lucid.
And it's a wonderful play.
It is a
You
wonderful
see,
play.
you forget that.
Speed the Plow, a revival, it's quite a success on Broadway. David Mamet's play with Jeremy Piven from Entourage.
Not
I
a
think
big
he's from.
stretch for him.
No, not a big stretch. That play, though, Mike, struck me as being pretty thin gruel
It
this
is.
time
It's,
around.
it's slight, but boy, they carried it off.
Raul Esparza.
Yes, Raul Esparza, Elizabeth Moss, Raul Esparza, terrific. I mean, he's got the language. He's got the Mamet poetry, if you will.
Yeah.
He knows how to deliver it. It's almost like a musical, and he's amazing. And I think he could be a real contender for the Tony this year.
Yeah, you found this an enjoyable cast.
Yeah,
even though
but
the
it's
play's
a
pretty-
very, very minor play, which it was with Madonna. And it is,
It's even more.
it is still a very small thing.
Yeah, and John, your feelings
See,
on
Madonna, as another celeb,
who couldn't do it?
couldn't do it and never acted on the stage since.
Give her credit for being on stage. Or you
Why
know.
you don't go on stage?
Now we have 1 minute left. Must we fill it
give
with
them
Madonna?
credit?
No.
It's a
Let's talk about Liza.
All right. I know you want to talk about Liza. She was in New York, big splashy show at the
Opening,
Palace.
great.
I mean, is it just pathetic?
Well, there were times when she couldn't breathe, and you were really nervous, and you thought, you know, is this shtick or should we call 911? I mean, it was, but yes, it was exciting.
Yes,
It was
she pulled it off. Yeah.
There's
you
no
were-
one else who could do that. Maybe Anne Margaret, but is she still conscious? I don't know. But you know, the fact is, there's nobody who could get a standing ovation for every number. You know.
And she did, which was
Yes.
pretty amazing.
And did you see this, John, Liza?
I haven't seen it. No.
Well, why not?
Well, it's Jacques just reviewed it for me. So there we are.
Did you have this sense though that if one reads the famous William Goldman book, The Season, 1967, it opens with Judy Garland at the Palace, and he describes the massive gay men worshiping Judy Garland. Does Liza engender that same kind of worship from gay men
What,
still?
gay
Jacques?
men are left. Yes, you had Alan Cumming worshiping her.
Well, she's a survivor, and in this tough economic times,
Unlike many drama critics.
Unlike the critics,
We have
yes.
1 minute left. All right.
Is there anything that you all feel that you wish to
Draw attention to before we wrap
draw
it
our
up?
attention to?
Yes, certainly. The Off-Broadway, Garden of Earthly Delights is a delight.
Martha Graham.
Martha Clark.
Clark.
Wrong.
Martha Graham is busy this year.
That's a revival of 20 years ago.
It's a restaging, Jack. We don't use the word revival of a classic play, a signature piece of work. It lasts 55 minutes. It's wonderfully sexy and terrific.
And Billy Elliot, let's not
Yes.
forget that.
Minor little off-Broadway show.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, no.
But let's put in a plug for Stephen Daldry, though. I think he pulled everything together. And
The director of Billy
the director
Elliot.
of Billy Elliot, because there are not many of those guys left that can pull together all those disparate elements. You know, he got Elton John, he got the choreographer Peter Darling, he got the production team.
Plus, he got three boys to
Three
play
boys.
with.
Yes, 3 boys to do that, and directing.
Interchangeably.
Not since Annie have kids been used that well.
And Elton John had the most feeling. I think this score meant the most to him of any he's written. It was his best.
Yeah.
The mining documentary at the start, I thought, got it off a bit slow.
That
was
was a
another
video.
movie.
There was a video. It was a movie.
What do you think?
Simon
I loved
McBurney.
it. I thought it was a marvelous. Why not bring
They
in
should have
cinematic
kept you as the
elements?
movie critic. Just shifted
Well,
you
they
over
don't have
from-
one of those either. So. Well, that's too luxurious.
Trying to help you,
John.
That's right. Okay, all right.
No.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on Theater Talk. Mike Kuchwara from the Associated Press, whose reviews will be seen in every newspaper across.
The thing grows. It's Kuchwara.
There's one drama critic, Mike Kuchwara of the AEP. Jacques Lassard, I'll miss your pungent, witty reviews. I mean, you could really flatten with a sentence. The worst show I've seen in 33 years. Boom, Jacques
But
Lassard.
Joe Franklin says I have a great radio voice,
And
I
you're on
cherish that.
WCBS, CBS all over the country, and so that's
I'll be
fantastic.
seeing you on the radio.
Man About Town Minute with Jacques Lassard. And John Heilpern fighting the good fight for the importance of the drama critic at the New York Observer.
That's me.
Also the author of a wonderful biography of the playwright John Osborne, which I believe is in paperback now.
Yeah,
But John, don't you have a new book coming out?
soon.
What's your new book about?
I'm not saying.
All right, we'll come back and talk.
Drama